All right, welcome everyone to another episode of our podcast. My name is David Levine, founder and CEO of ResTech Solutions, and I have joining us today Dr. Stephen Lewellis. And if you'd like to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me, David. My name is Dr. Stephen Lewellis. I'm a board certified integrative dermatologist. I own and operate Above and Beyond Dermatology in central Wisconsin. I also host a podcast of the same name, Above and Beyond Dermatology. And I'm just out there trying to do dermatology and medicine in general within a private practice setting in a different way, a way that makes people feel different than the usual fare that people are often experiencing. And with what medicine has come to in this country.
All right, well, fantastic. Glad you're able to join us today. So today, really, we have the topic we're discussing about rethinking healthcare in 2025, a fresh approach to the challenges with patient care. So with that, I'll kind of hop into our first question centered on today's topic.
Mhm.
So, in a healthcare landscape that's rapidly changing, how do you see technology, especially the virtual first models, reshaping the way dermatology practices approach patient care and accessibility?
I think it's the sky's the limit with this stuff in terms of, especially if a doctor is actually the one making the decisions in terms of choosing the technology that's made, not necessarily developing it. We don't have to develop it, but I do believe there's been a lot of stuff developed by very smart people who could make amazing things, who don't really talk much to doctors before deciding what the problem is, what the real pain points are. So as that hopefully shifts, and as docs who may have decision-making power are more involved, we can focus on real pain points that doctors and patients face every day in clinic, rather than assumed pain points that people who are good at building things can build. And then we have great tools. So certainly artificial intelligence is the biggest thing. And to not talk about that would be, and we're just at the very beginning, even though it feels like such a tremendous amount of capacity already, or potential, but we're just at the beginning. And to not use that in a medical practice, it does not make any sense to me. I use it in all kinds of different ways to help my patients and to make leverage myself so that I can do more, but not at the cost of making patients feel like my clinic is an assembly line. So anything that elevates the patient experience and helps the physician and the team at the same time, those are the types of technology that have so far not been adopted very well in big systems, and that I'm always looking for.
No, that's great. I've talked with, several others in the healthcare space, and AI has been coming up a lot. So it is great, to hear and to see that you are really looking at that and being forward thinking. So I do applaud you for that because I know that is a big thing. And like you said, it is still very much early days, even though it seems like AI can do a lot. It's probably been around a lot longer than people think, but there's even further to go than the distance we've come with it so far. So, talking a bit more about your practice of above and beyond dermatology, I know y'all stand out for the integrative and the virtual first approach you just mentioned, but can you walk us through how that model works and what inspired you to build your practice this way?
Sure. My practice evolves every day. It's a very unique thing. It is just me currently, and some folks who serve as just independent contractors remotely, who are really good teammates of mine. But when I'm actually in a room with a patient, it's just me, and I'm trying to figure out a way to deliver care that feels really, really good, and then eventually scale that to a point where I'm still having 80 or 90% of what the product that I'm delivering today, but without me having to do 100% of it. And that goes to the point of how it's evolving every day. So this, you mentioned virtual first. That's something that came to mind when I was playing around with opening my own practice. And it's not something I actually think about on a regular basis, but it led me to the point of, it's not virtual first, it's patient first. It's what would be best for the patient. Plus, is this feasible for what they're looking for help with? So initially, I thought virtual first would be a great way to identify patients who are appropriate for virtual care and push them towards that. And then say, okay, well, an office visit is the second option if either they just desire it or it's just something that requires an office visit. Like, I have a spot on my shoulder I'm worried about, might need a biopsy. But then I get that didn't truly align with what I wanted to do after I thought more about it and had some experience, because I don't want to push people in a certain direction. I want to say, these are the ways that we can help you. What works best for you in terms of all those things, combined with my decision about if I think I can help you in a good way through a virtual visit, for instance. And I do house calls as well. It's still mostly in office as well, but that speaks to just the constantly evolving nature of the practice, and the decision making filters I use are essentially, is this going to make the experience for the patient and the team better? The more things that can meet both of those criterion at the same time, the more likely I am to say yes or to continue to do something. And the feedback from patients have been good. They appreciate the flexibility. It just feels different from the moment they start talking to me on the phone if they call me just to inquire about a visit. So I don't even think about that phrase anymore, but it's out there. I've used it in my website, and but it's nice to think about where it's come from since then.
Well, I appreciate the insight because
Perfect.
obviously not very common that there are a lot of providers out there that are even offering, house
Mhm.
visits these
Yeah,
days. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of going back to the roots of
for
how it
sure.
started, and I think that's phenomenal. So, what has been the biggest benefit and the biggest challenge of running a technology-driven medical practice, across multiple states or the areas that you operate?
Yeah. The biggest benefit, and I'm still in my infancy in actually putting these things into place, but the biggest benefit that I visualize in the end, if I'm picturing what this thing looks like when it's quote unquote finished, is the ability to use intelligently and very strategically and intentionally choose technologies that are going to elevate the patient experience in a way that allows me to see more patients than I am now, because I'm an extreme example in terms of very low volume, lots of time with patients, building the brand in that regard. But I know I need to strike a balance between that and keeping the lights on and seeing a slightly higher, at least, number. But that's where the tech comes in. The more nuanced and intentional I am about technology applications, the more of my time and eventually my team's time as well that I free up. And as much can be automated in the background that doesn't compromise patient care and the experience, the better. So that, again, I'm in my infancy. I still do a lot of stuff without the technology that's out there, but that's partly budgetary, partly just because I'm still figuring it out. But again, it's all in service of what is still going to feel really good to the type of patient that I'm trying to attract, but will allow me to leverage what I'm doing, because I know it's the end goal here isn't just me doing a really good job for a few patients a day. It's a team of people doing that level of really good job, obviously more than that per day. That still feels very different from the status quo that people are getting. And tech is a huge part of that.
All right. Well, perfect. And from your experience, how do patients respond to more tech-enabled, transparent care model compared to the traditional in-office care?
Largely, I love it. I think about simple things. I mean, when we say tech, it doesn't have to be fancy or new or forward. Tech is, I mean, a phone is a technology, a text message is a technology, but it's how we use these things and what we choose our defaults to be. I am almost essentially a default text message practice rather than phone call, wait on a phone tree, and that it certainly misses some people because I'm not efficient with answering all the phone calls. And there's tech to do that as well, which I'm looking into. But it's been nice to know that even though I don't answer every phone call, and my message usually says something like, send me a text message if you're willing, otherwise leave a message and I'll call you back as soon as I can. The amount of patients who love the fact that they can just text me, or if they get that message, they can then send a text and it's me talking to them. And a lot of everything can be set up by a text on their own time if they want that. And I always say, if you don't want to text, I will find a time to call you and we'll figure it out on the phone like you're used to. But the majority of patients, that's how people communicate these days. And it's certainly skewed demographically, but I don't assume that a 26-year-old is only going to want to communicate by a text. And I don't assume that an 86-year-old is not going to want to communicate by a text. Again, it's about what the patient prefers. And I just know that a lot of people, the majority of people in my practice, are actually grateful to not have to sit on the phone, not have to play phone tag, that kind of thing. So that's been one of the simpler things. It doesn't have to be AI. It doesn't have to be very fancy to that already make it feel very different. And I do a lot of that between visits as well. And that's to my detriment. The fewer visits I have, the less billing I do when I'm inside an insurance model, but the better I do by my patients. And I fix a lot of things and address a lot of things and do a lot of coaching by a quick text or an email or something like that, that results in a lot fewer follow-up visits, less time that my patients have to spend and less money that they have to spend in the long run. So that matters to me as well. And it's all, again, part of the brand that I'm trying to build. So that I think the texting is just a great example. It's simple. It's not a fancy thing, but it's we're still using fax machines in medicine, and this kind of thing is very frustrating to people. So phone trees are equally frustrating to my ideal customer, at least.
No, I would agree with you. And, again, it's something that, personally I appreciate. I'm seeing that more and more that it is becoming more common where, historically it's like, oh, when you saw texting being used, it was like, oh, here's an appointment reminder, we'll text you,
Yeah,
this and that. But it's not like you could easily respond and have a conversation. So
yeah. This
I
is a
think,
conversation. That's it. That yeah, that's important to me.
yeah, so it's the way, I think it's even more like you say, the way it's being used.
Yeah. And it works for both of us. And again, think about myself and my team. I don't do this at the sacrifice of myself and that eventually the team, because I know it's good for patients. There are certain things that we do for because we have the patients at the top of the pyramid, but it's also much better for me. And it's how the way I prefer to communicate. And it's much more efficient because I could sit down and take 20 minutes to answer a whole bunch of text messages that aren't emergent. Whereas, or as opposed to playing phone tag again and or hiring someone to play phone tag with people all day. And that's so yeah, it's so far it's working and I look forward to I know that there's a company I just heard about called Cindy AI and they're doing a really good job making AI voice assisted phone answering for medical practices. And it doesn't just schedule a visit, it does lots and lots of different things from prescription refills to minor questions about like post surgical care to FAQs about the practice, scheduling an appointment, all of that in a way that feels pretty natural. So that is probably where I'll be going. And I know that it's fun to be able to also build those tools on my own, build GPTs that are me essentially, or that are my second brain for my practice that my patients can interact with eventually. So all that stuff is really exciting. We need to leverage time away from the one-on-one visit because if we can get a lot done before the visit and after the visit and between appointments that don't require me putting in a bunch of my own time for each instance of that and the patient can say okay I don't have to call him I can just go over here when I have time I can figure it out or I can enter my a long narrative about the history of what I've been dealing with but I can do that before the visit in a very organized, strategic way. And I use another company for that called First History or First HX. And the firsthx.com is the address, but First History is how they say it's a Canadian company revolutionizing intakes. And that's all done before the visit. And I'm an investor in that company. So the full disclosure for that, but I use it for my practice as well. So there's just so much time that isn't being utilized. And then the time with the one-on-one time, for me, it's a lot longer, but one-on-one time, especially when it's only 5 minutes with a doctor, it feels pressured and like you have to get so much done because all that other time isn't being utilized like it could be.
No, it's nice because, again, as you said, there's a lot technology can do to really streamline, let's call it the quote unquote, the back office
Mhm.
functionality. So you can free up the human capital where it's really going to be needed and most appreciated.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, perfect. Well, so kind of switching a little more towards you,
Mhm.
what do you enjoy most about your role, both as a physician and an entrepreneur, leading above and beyond dermatology?
I say to everyone who asks, people ask me all the time, "How's it going?" Because you're doing something different, and that people often want to know how it is going. Every time, I very authentically just say I'm happy at work every day. I look forward to starting a new day every day, and at the end of the day, I'm a little bit bummed that I have to stop working because there's always more I want to get done. So that's the flip side of it. But it was never like that when I was working for big systems. After I did that for 4 years after residency, pulling into the exit to go to work was a really tough feeling, and I know tons of people out there can relate to that. So not having the salary and the safety and security and all of that, I was ready to trade that off, but it's meant the world to me. Like I am excited at work every day, and I never thought I could actually feel that. So that part is amazing. Getting to make the decisions that I think are best for patients and my eventual team are really fun. And also knowing that I can do things like this. I don't have to have there's not someone watching, okay, why does Lewellis have his 2 o'clock blocked today? Like, because that's my decision. I have both short, medium, and long-term investments of my time that I make. And not all of them have to be face to face with a patient because it's generating revenue in that instant. So it allows me to do creative things like this and a lot of other stuff that I enjoy as well. And that's all a virtuous cycle. It keeps everything fresh and it keeps me excited for doing all of it. So it's been nothing but amazing. And I know that there are a lot of people on the fence. And I always say, if you have a job, if you're an employee and you're happy, don't listen to me. There's no reason to spend your time shiny object syndrome thinking, oh, well, should I be doing that? No, you shouldn't. I don't think if you're happy. But if you're not and you want to do something more, it's much more possible than a lot of people have led us to believe, at least my generation of physicians. I said private practice is too hard, all that.
Yeah, and kind of put it in another light, it's like how everything it's got a warning. It's like, think of it this way, warning, entrepreneurship's not for everybody because it's not
Totally.
all, green
Yes.
grass and daisies over here. It's even more work than just
Mhm.
being an employee. But if it's something you have a passion for and you're gonna like having the freedom and flexibility, like you said, go for it because
Mhm.
always go you can always go back, but it is also a risk you're gonna take.
And we're lucky in dermatology and medicine in general. It's a fairly high demand, low supply marketplace. It's a healthy market. It's not healthy in terms of it's not, if you need customers, they're not impossible to find, but not healthy in the way it's currently delivered and priced. It's certainly very unhealthy in that regard. But for someone who's worried that where am I going to get patients or that worst case scenario, yeah, you don't like it or you truly can't find patients, you can probably go get a job again. And that is a real privilege to have that to fall back on if you wanted to take a risk like this to try something different. And I agree, like the entrepreneur side or the people building the things should be a very small minority of people because that we need employees and that otherwise we never get to take ourselves out of the business and continue thinking about how to make it better. And that's right now, I'm not really an entrepreneur. I'm a glorified technician in my business because I do everything. So I don't get a lot of time to think about things, but I'm on my way. But I do believe that, there are a lot of people who just want to have a job, but they want to have a job that they don't hate. And a lot of healthcare workers are in it for the patients. They're very self-sacrificing, but their jobs, like me, just they turn into the exit and they have that pit in their stomach. And that I'm trying to build something where people feel a lot different when they're coming to work.
Oh, no, that's phenomenal, and I do appreciate that because it just people can come to a place where even if it's just a job that they enjoy, and I think overall everyone's much happier, and you can
You
tell
bet.
just from the overall culture and feeling when you walk in the door.
No doubt.
So I know we've talked about a lot, but as we kind of start to wrap up here, I just want to see are there any current new initiatives or projects you're currently focused on, whether that's inpatient engagement, digital transformation, or operational efficiency?
All of those. And I don't know if I could give the project a name, but that's where I am right now. I am at the point where I clearly need to devote a lot more time to getting myself out of the every day or every part doing every part of my business every day. And I have done that a bit. I'm very grateful. There's a gal named Peyton who works with me. She used to be a patient. She moved away, but she is incredible, and she is just waiting for me to allow her to do more things. And the challenge as the person who's building and doing the business is where do you find the time to work on delegation and elevating other people? Because when you open your computer at the beginning of the day, it just goes by because all of a sudden everything is coming at you. And if you don't schedule that time to do that, so very gradually, I'm doing it with little bits and pieces, and I know it will come. And I think the next big thing I want to do is probably on the front end of let me take one of these, like Simbi that I mentioned. Let me pilot one of these products in my business. Let a voice, an AI generated voice, answer the phones, answer the FAQs. It'll feel different again, but it'll still feel safe and good, and that will help filter the people who I really need to call. But they're not just getting my message, because I know that's not good. I said to my patient today, I said, in terms of customer service, answering the phone is the worst part of my business by far. And that just is what it is currently. But again, like, we do a lot of texting, so I make up for it like that. But yeah, I'll probably try to take on one of those front end AI guided services, that because I think that would be very transformative. And then I'll free up even more time so I can do the higher level thinking to how do we gradually start to scale this so it's not just me spending an hour with every new patient kind of thing.
And kind of on that note with AI, kind of actually, I think really leads into this next question I want to ask. Because you are leveraging a lot of technology in your practice, how do you currently ensure that the security and privacy of the patient data across your various virtual systems?
Good question. I think you need to work with companies that you trust. I have at least in terms of HIPAA and things like that. Well, and then there's SOC 2 and all this other kinds of stuff that I have to trust in other people who know that kind of thing much better than me. But that's where it comes from the partners that I work with. So if I'm engaging with a piece of technology that I didn't myself build, which in most cases that would be the case, you have to have that trust in them. There's obviously the BAA that needs to be signed between the two, and then making sure that it's a reputable company who is doing that compliance. And then on my end, of course, with my devices, both hardware and software, cloud stuff, just making it as secure as I can, knowing that I'm there's always ways that I could improve. And if I hired a consultant, I'm sure there's a lot of things that they would say, but I'm just not there yet. I don't have this huge operation that has the ability to do all of those types of things in terms of how do I how do I really, really shore this thing up? But that's the balance you have to go at the beginning. It's going to be a little more fly by the seat of your pants, sort of, but it's still very safe with respect to the non-negotiable things in terms of patient data, patient safety, what the tools I'm using, what the exam room looks like, all that kind of thing. But the rest of it is a little bit more. It feels like a little bit more on a whim. But I don't feel like that's a great example or a great answer to your question, but that does suggest that there certainly are things that I need to be thinking, be more thoughtful about in that regard. But again, I'm trying to work with partners that I trust. And once I scale and the operation is larger, part of that scaling will be to become more mature in terms of on the legal side, the cybersecurity side, all that stuff. So I'd certainly engage a consultant and say, what are the things I'm not thinking of that I need to do as I grow?
Okay. No, I do appreciate the insight. No, I think it's a very appropriate answer because obviously it speaks to where you are, but you do have the forethought to know, okay, here's what I got to do. And, I know what I know, and I obviously don't know what I don't know, but
Mhm.
know that, we got to leverage, that knowledge somewhere. So I think that's great. But I know we're kind of approaching our time. So is there any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
If you're still listening and you have the itch or the urge or something like that, but you haven't done it yet, you're an employee or you're a resident or something along those lines, but you have a desire to run your own practice, open your own practice, join another innovative private practice, just know that it's a lot more possible than a lot of people I imagine you've talked to have led you to believe. And it's really fun as well if that's something you think would be fun for you. And if you don't, then turn it off. And if you're in the middle, it's okay. Wherever you are is fine. I was an employee for 4 years and I needed to be. We come out of residency. A lot of us are way in debt. We want to learn to take care of patients and we need a paycheck and all of that. So wherever you are is fine. It's probably where you're meant to be. But there's resources out there if and when you want to make the transition. And that's what I'm trying to build with the podcast and also just be an example as I'm building the practice in real time.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and coming on to, speak with me and having this
Okay.
great insight. And for anyone else who'd like to know more or reach out, in the
Mhm.
description below the video will be all of the relevant contact information.
Cool.
So thank you again.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you taking the time and reaching out to me. And you, I think Alex, who identified me. I appreciate both of you. And thanks for being here. And thanks to everyone who's listening.
Thank you.